It's Monday, June 3rd, 2024, and welcome to Morning Gen, a daily show offering fresh takes on legal and political news over coffee, Monday through Friday. It's so great to be back today because, given a certain someone whose news story pretty much eclipsed everything else, we are now a bit in the dark about legal and political news that happened between Thursday and today. So I'd like to highlight those top stories before we get to Crazy Town. Okay, at top of mind, since we're talking about coffee, is some good news out of Starbucks Corporation. That is Starbucks and the union, and keep in mind that only 400 of the stores had unionized. Quite a few stores, but not all of them, obviously. So they have tentatively entered into an agreement which will relate to protecting workers' jobs. There'll be more guardrails on firing. That's really important because heretofore, even though these 400 stores have unionized, they have not had a collective bargaining agreement. Very happy to hear that. Also, in what I would consider pretty good news, Elon Musk was just accused by shareholders of insider trading. They are alleging that Elon Musk, in possession of information about how deliveries of Tesla cars would be disappointing, he knew this before it was announced publicly, they say, and well, of course he knew it. But what they're arguing is that based on that information, he sold $7.5 billion worth of stock. This dates back to 2022. Now, you may not be fully aware of the law of insider trading, but no need to worry about that now. This particular lawsuit was a lawsuit filed not in federal court, but filed in the Delaware Court of Chancery. This is a specialized court that deals with business matters for a large number of corporations, specifically those that are incorporated in Delaware. And this lawsuit argues breach of fiduciary duty. I promise to bring you along as there's more news about this, and with me you can learn more about both the law of insider trading and the fiduciary duties that executives and directors owe to the corporation and its shareholders. Also in the news that is, I consider positive, this happened also last week. It happened on Friday, but again, because a certain someone pretty much eclipsed all of the news, you may not have heard this. A panel out of the District of Columbia that advises the highest court in DC, the highest court in DC, has recommended that Rudy Giuliani lose his law license. And the reason for this relates to his behavior during and after the 2020 election, where he engaged in all manner of lies, misleading the public about how the fairness of the election, making ridiculous claims. And you may have remembered some of these things that happened. Who could forget Four Seasons total landscaping, that mess up when he thought was getting a press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel. Instead, it was at this landscaping business. At any rate, what I want to do now, though, is read to you from this story, from the words of this panel, as to why they were recommending that he lose his license to practice law in the District of Columbia. What they wrote was that Rudy Giuliani urged a federal judge to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvania voters, even though he had no objectively reliable evidence that any such scheme existed, namely that the officials had not protected against voter fraud. He claimed there's all kinds of fraud and the election was stolen. As a result of that, they have decided that he should lose his license. I will keep you posted on that. Now, the next bit of news is really upsetting. And so I just want to take a pause and say that before we shift gears. And that is that on Friday, the Texas Supreme Court overturned a lower court judge in terms of her interpretation of the near total ban on abortions in Texas. And to keep this clear, what the Texas Supreme Court did is bad for women. It is terrible. What the lower court did was try to ease up a little bit on the language of the law. And so the lower court, the trial court judge in July, was presiding over a lawsuit brought by women and their doctors. And what these women and their doctors were what they were seeking as a remedy, is an injunction against this really onerous Texas law. And what the judge decided, and this judge is described in the news story that I'm reading as an Austin Democrat, what this judge did, Jessica Mangrum, is she issued an opinion that would allow abortions in Texas based on a doctor's good faith and judgment. And she made a list of the types of pregnancies where the fetus would be unlikely to survive birth and that would make the pregnancy unsafe. And in doing so, she was trying to create these categories so that women and their doctors would feel comfortable moving forward with the medical treatment that they need without fear of being criminally charged. However, the state of Texas did not like that judgment, and so they appealed it, seeking to block the decision. And ultimately, the court refused this. And the problem here, of course, and you know what the problem here is, that women now, as a result of the Texas Supreme Court, if they are in an emergency situation, similar to the lead plaintiff in this case, who was septic and needed to get an abortion immediately, what they are saying at this Supreme Court of Texas is that you will have to go to a judge to get permission. This is ridiculous. They do not care about life. They do not care about freedom. This is a very, very dangerous new development where people are trying to impose their own religious views about when life begins on the rest of us. And I just want to make this clear. No one needs to have an abortion. No one is being forced to have an abortion. If it's against your religion, you don't want to do it, you don't believe in it, you don't need to. But you have no right, as far as I'm concerned, to stop someone else from receiving the medical care that they need, from having control over their own body, their own reproductive freedom, and also to protect victims of rape and incest, period. I've made my point clear. Okay, now we are going to, in 1 second, 2 seconds, move to Crazy Town. But I first want to hold up for you something that I cherish, which is my passport. And I don't get a chance to travel that often. I'm quite a busy person. I don't think, well, we're all busy people. Quite honestly, I don't have the money or time to travel out of the country, but, and I don't even remember when the last time that I did was. Okay, I do. It was for research 2 years ago. I feel very lucky. But at any rate, there is a certain someone who, because he was he was convicted 34 times, found guilty on Thursday. There are now, I think it's something like 37 countries that he cannot visit. So if you are someone who's planning to leave the country, you might want to check out that list so you can be avoiding Donald Trump. Won't that be lovely? Okay, now my final topic here is Crazy Town. And I'm sad to say that Crazy Town is CNN. Yes, the cable news network. And I have been a guest on that show. I think a lot of the people who work there are brilliant, wonderful, good people. But something terrible happened this weekend. My friend George Conway, the political pundit, corporate lawyer, and former spouse of Kellyanne Conway, who is still supporting her ex-boss, Donald Trump. So George Conway was on CNN on a panel of people discussing the conviction of Donald Trump. And there was a paid commentator, I think there's another name for a correspondent, named Scott Jennings, who was speaking. And George was so frustrated because Jennings was outright lying, repeating some of the same lies that have been repeated over and over about what the jury instructions were and what the law was, trying to make it look like this was not truly justified in terms of these 34 guilty, the jury finding him guilty 34 times. So this is the plan. It's the talking points. It's what Donald Trump is saying and all of his supporters. And unfortunately, a lot of Republican electeds are just lying. So George was so frustrated with this. You could see him on this clip, and you should really watch it. You can find it on Twitter or elsewhere. And he puts his head in his hands, practically on the desk. He's so disgusted. So the host, Cassie Hunt, asked George, you put your head in your hands. What are you need to say, why are you saying that? And George said, he's lying. He's lying about the law, and Scott, you're lying, and confronted him. And at some point, Cassie said, Cassie was kind of objecting to that. And he said, George said, I don't know why you're putting him on here, why you're paying him to lie, something like that. And Cassie said, whoa, 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 whoa. He is our colleague. We can't talk like that. So that's crazy town. What in the world is CNN doing, giving a microphone to someone and paying them to lie to the public? It's outrageous. I understand why you might want to have a person on as a guest. When I've been an expert, I'm an unpaid expert. When you have some sort of guest who's a political figure or a commentator, plenty of us come on air. We're not paid. We just share our opinions. And if I were saying something was incorrect, I would be delighted to be corrected. I don't want to mislead the public. I want to clarify, make sense, and be truthful. The idea that this host reprimanded George Conway because she wanted to continue supporting her colleague, this is the problem. Loyalty over truth, money to keep viewers watching over integrity, it's got to stop. I don't care whether it's Fox News or CNN or any newspaper. I support these organizations, but they need to clean up their act. It's wrong to lie to the public, and it's wrong to do it for ratings, and it's wrong to keep someone on the payroll who does it. That's all I got for you today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.